Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Huo Yuhao was too quick. In just a few minutes, there were already more than 10 metal shells on his carving table. Furthermore, each one of them was quite large. He needed to place some of them on the ground before he could continue his work. Among the 7 judges, the leftmost elder furrowed his brow and said, "Don't tell me that the disabled kid from the Duskwater Alliance is trying to take away all the rare metals by creating such a huge soul tool." Yi Yulin also furrowed his brow. He had also thought of the same thing. It seemed very possible. It had been less than 15 minutes, but Huo Yuhao had already used a lot of rare metals. At the same time, he had created many pieces of outer shell. It seemed like the soul tool he was creating today was going to be very large. The benefit of creating such a soul tool was that he could leave with a lot of rare metals. However, he was only using the cheaper rare metals, and hadn't used the more valuable ones yet. It was just that Yi Yulin couldn't tell what he was trying to create. Is it an original piece? That'll be interesting. Huo Yuhao was very quick, and seemed very serious too. However, no one noticed that he seemed to be less quick-witted than before, even though he still appeared to be very persistent. It was very tormenting to experience spiritual separation. He tolerated the bouts of weakness he felt as his spirit was separated from his body. Although he wasn't slow, his spiritual sea was billowing. It'll be great if my spiritual power became material. When I reach the concrete material realm, I won't have so many problems undergoing spiritual separation. Of course, Huo Yuhao knew that he should create his formation arrays when he had the most energy. It was just that he couldn't focus right now. The portion of spiritual power he had separated from himself in the carriage had already left this place under the concealment of his imitation and returned to Radiant City. He had attempted such a spiritual separation before, but had had to remain in a still state so that his energy would be focused on the spiritual power that had separated from his body. However, it was different this time. His actual body had to compete here, while he separated his spiritual power to perform other tasks. He was successful, but the side effects still left him feeling dizzy. Furthermore, his spiritual form and actual body kept on switching in his mind. If not for the fact that his spirit was sufficiently strong, this continuous change would have driven him crazy. However, he started to adapt as time passed. A trace of his spirit had been in his spiritual form. The consciousness within that trace of his spirit slowly awakened, and he managed to slowly separate his energy between both sides. He was truly multitasking now. However, this was his first attempt at such a thing. It was inevitable that he couldn't concentrate. When his spiritual form traveled in the air, there were a few times he almost got into an accident. While nothing had gone wrong so far, as he was working on his soul tool, he couldn't possibly develop his formation arrays, as he couldn't focus properly. When his spiritual form separated from him, Huo Yuhao gathered a lot of his spiritual power in it. It was a fascinating separation. His soul skills could also be separated between his 2 bodies. The 4 skills from his spirit eye's first soul ring were allocated to his spiritual form. Without his spiritual detection in his actual body, he could only create the outer shell of his soul tool. Fortunately, it wasn't his first time creating this soul tool. He was at least familiar with the steps. There were also many rare metals available to him. He wasn't bothered about failing, he just wanted to increase his speed. He wanted to give everyone a huge surprise. This soul tool he was creating was very important for that surprise. When he created this soul tool in the past, he couldn't bear to use rare metals. It was already very good if he could use some fine iron. But now that he had such excellent resources available to him, he couldn't spurn such a good opportunity. He had to try his best to gain as many benefits as possible. In addition, he would benefit greatly if he managed to successfully create this soul tool. Very soon, 1 hour had passed. As Yi Yulin had placed most of his attention on Huo Yuhao during this time, he started to figure some things out. Is this kid creating a human-shaped soul tool? How is that possible? From the outer shells that Huo Yuhao was assembling, he seemed to be forming the shape of a person. However, everyone in the world of soul engineers knew how difficult it was to create a human-shaped soul tool. Yi Yulin had tried it before. However, a human-shaped soul tool required too many formation array transducers. The requirements on the resources needed and the number of formation arrays that had to be linked, as well as one's control of the soul tool, were too high. It wasn't difficult to create a human-shaped soul tool that could be controlled. The difficult part was creating a human-shaped soul tool that could greatly increase one's abilities. It had to be superior to the controller's own abilities in terms of speed, attack, defense, and other aspects. It must also not restrain the soul skills that the controller could use. Even a Class 9 soul engineer finds it difficult to create a human-shaped soul tool, but this young man, who isn't even older than 30, is trying to create one in this tournament. Why is he so confident? Does he really think that he can create a human-shaped soul tool within 6 hours? And that it can help him win this tournament? No. Yi Yulin's eyes suddenly brightened. He started to understand what Huo Yuhao was doing. This kid can't move his lower limbs. He'll definitely suffer later. If he can create a human-shaped soul tool that can help him move, he might actually win. However, such a human-shaped soul tool has to be equipped with an additional offensive-type soul tool, but the rules dictate that each competitor can only create one soul tool. How is he going to overcome this dilemma? Don't tell me that he's going to forfeit after completing this human-shaped soul tool. Even if this is the case, can he really complete the hundreds of formation arrays needed for a human-shaped soul tool within 6 hours? And make it move? It's impossible. Suddenly, the Star Sky douluo felt very confused. He was getting more and more curious as he watched Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao continued to work on his soul tool, but he didn't make any formation arrays. He was now making some smaller components. The rare metals that he used also became increasingly valuable. Good rare metals are indeed different. The difference between using tough spring copper and ordinary fine copper to create the same component is indeed very large. In the past, I only succeeded once after failing many times, and I still had to worry about the strength. However, I've succeeded in one try using this spring copper, and my worries are also allayed. The difference is too great. Ever since he became a soul engineer, Huo Yuhao had never enjoyed himself so much before. It was an enjoyment derived from being lavish. However, his concrete immaterial spiritual form was quickly traveling back to Radiant City even, as he was enjoying this experience with his actual body. The Sunmoon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy was completely silent now. It wasn't long before the lights would be turned out. The academy students had long since returned to their dorms. Night had fallen, and the weather seemed a little gloomy. The lighting was very poor as night fell. Only the soul lamps along the sides of the walls in the academy managed to provide some lighting to their surroundings. There were a few figures standing at a gate not far from the academy. They had managed to camouflage themselves into the dark. Why is he not here? A captivating female voice sounded a little anxious. Don't be anxious, a cold voice replied. It was a voice that could leave a deep impression in one's mind. At this point, the clouds in the sky seemed to disperse. A streak of moonlight flashed past this dark corner they were in, revealing 5 figures. They were waiting silently. There were 5 people: Ji Juechen, Jing Ziyan, Xiao Xiao, Wang Donga and Wang Qiu'e. Yes, both Wang Qiu'e and Wang Donga were there. The entire Tang sect was waiting outside the hotel, apart from Bei Bei. They all looked ready for action, even though they were supposed to be resting in their hotel rooms right now. Wang Donga and Wang Qiu'e were the 2 that had been speaking earlier. Wang Donga furrowed her brow and revealed a mysterious look in her eyes. She wasn't worried about tonight's operation, but she couldn't help but fret as she heard that Huo Yuhao was about to perform a spiritual separation. Huo Yuhao's actual body still had to compete, and he was being watched by many eyes where he was, including many strong individuals from the Holy Ghost Church. His life might be endangered. Hikaitu couldn't possibly protect him on his own. However, it was too late now. They could only follow Huo Yuhao's plan and arrangements. The money is all in this card. Check it. Shu Sansha was covered in a black hat and veil. Jiang Nan was the same. There was a sneaky middle-aged man in front of them. He glanced around, then quickly took the card from Shu Sansha. He retrieved a small soul tool and inserted the card into it. Very soon, an astronomical number appeared on the screen of this soul tool. The sneaky middle-aged man also appeared much more relaxed. Where are the goods? Shu Sansha asked. He exerted his dominance at this point. Shu Sansha and Jiang Nan didn't participate in the operation on the other side, because his injuries were relatively severe. Instead, he represented Huo Yuhao to settle the deal with Chen and subordinates. Huo Yuhao's plan didn't allow anything beneficial for the Tang sect to slip through their fingers. Even if their other two operations failed, the rare metals they had obtained through this deal was enough for the Tang sect to use for quite some time. How could money be more important than rare metals? Furthermore, most of their income came from what they won from the underground tournament, other than Shujiujiu and Wei Na's deposits. Completing this deal would reduce Chen An's suspicions. The Tang sect could possibly draw upon this connection in the future. A bracelet and 2 rings were handed to Shu Sanxia. Shu Sanxia passed them to Jiang Nannan beside him, and she immediately wore them on her hand as she scanned them with her spiritual power. She nodded at Shu Sanxia after a few moments. They exchanged a look, and they could see the elation in each other's eyes. They had completed the deal on this side. Are the goods all there? The middle-aged man that came forth to complete the deal asked a little restlessly. Shu Sanxia nodded in response. The middle-aged man's expression smoothed out, and he pulled the hood of his cloak over his head as he waved to them before he briskly disappeared into the night. Shu Sanxia grinned and said, "Let's go, Nan Nan. I believe their operation is about to begin, so let's get ready to coordinate or lend a hand. I wonder how Huo Yuhao is doing." "All right." Jiang Nannan acknowledged softly, and the two of them vanished into the darkness. Inside the Sunmoon Empire's royal palace, lights and lanterns dotted the royal palace and lit up the night sky. The crown prince, Shu Qianran, was reading a book in his study, accompanied by Zhu Zi. Shu Qianran suddenly looked up and smiled as he spoke to Zhu Zi. "Zhu Zi, do you want to watch the Great Soul Tool crafting tournament? You're also a soul engineer, so you should be interested in that." Zhu Zi was momentarily stunned. "That's not a good idea, Your Highness. How can you appear in a place like that with your status?" Shu Qianran smiled and replied, "That's all right. All I must do is hide your identity. There will be a conclusion tonight. Even if rare metals have to be given out, the profits must end up in the royal family's hands. Furthermore, the Holy Ghost Church has an exceptional appetite, and they wouldn't be so obedient and stable if not for these profits. Besides, you're the one spectating the tournament. I won't be following you. Go if you wish." Words came to the tip of Zhu Zi's tongue, but she held them back in the end. "What? Are you worried that working with the Holy Ghost Church is like dealing with the devil?" Shu Qianran saw through her doubts with one look. Zhu Zi nodded lightly and said, "The Holy Ghost Church is a sect that consists of evil soul masters after all, and they are publicly rejected. Their thought processes are drastically different from how normal soul masters think. I'm afraid." Shu Qianran waved her away. "I am very clear that cooperating with them is equivalent to dealing with the devil. However, this is something I have to do. The douluo continent's 3 native empires will never catch up to our speed of soul tool development no matter what they do, and our national strength is far superior to each of them. With our current strength, we can deal with a single country, but unifying and conquering the entire continent is exceptionally challenging. Why haven't the other 3 empires devoted their time and energy into developing soul tools? The reason is not because they lack rare metals. The more substantial reason stems from their deep-seated ideas and principles about soul masters. Soul masters represent a formidable profession, and they have existed on the douluo continent for far too long. Powerful soul masters are considered strategic assets for empires, and we have far fewer soul masters than the other 3 empires. The gap is even more pronounced as we go up the ranks. Think about it, how many titled douluo are there in Shrek Academy alone? Perhaps the Sunmoon Empire may accumulate enough strength, soul tools, and prodigious soul engineers to conquer the entire continent after a few hundred years. But I won't live that long, and time is short. I have to conquer the entire continent in the time that I have to rule over the Sunmoon Empire." Shu Qianran's eyes surged with passion as he reached this sentence. "We will need friends, and we have to form alliances if we want to achieve this. We need to obtain sufficient strength to fight against those soul masters on a higher level. Soul engineers can rival soul masters given enough time to set up and prepare, and soul engineers may even surpass soul masters in battles that rely on large-scale attacks. However, a Class 9 soul engineer has almost no chance to defeat an actual title douluo in an impromptu battle, while every single Class 9 soul engineer is considered an invaluable asset to the Empire. Therefore, I will not use them against those soul masters and those titled douluo. The optimal decision under such circumstances is to work together with the Holy Ghost sect. The Holy Ghost sect's evil soul masters have been holding back and building up for countless years to reach the scale they are at today. They are our greatest strength in terms of high-level combat. The Holy Ghost Church consists of only evil soul masters, so they can't do anything in public or out in the open. This is the reason why they are always in the shadows, while I handle the publicity and everything else on the surface. I have been using the Holy Ghost Church, and they have been using me. Their most important request doesn't mean much to me. They want to become the Sunmoon Empire's national church, and they want their founder to become the Imperial tutor. At the same time, they want us to announce across the entire world after we conquer the continent that they will take over as traditional soul masters, and society is to do away with their label of evil soul masters. Therefore, I don't have to worry about anything at all. Even if we have conflicts, all that will happen after the Empire conquers the continent. When that happens, perhaps I will have accumulated enough strength. A cold feeling flickered across the corner of Shu Qianran's mouth as he finished his last sentence. Juzi listened intently, but her heart was going cold inside. The Crown Prince is so reserved, and he will only reveal some of his thoughts and opinions in front of me. Have you left, Huo Yuhao? Hurry up and leave. How can you fight against him? I truly don't wish to see your corpse. Juzi couldn't help but feel a little anxious when she thought about Huo Yuhao. She had taken a big risk and gotten someone to send a letter to Huo Yuhao so that he could leave this giant whirlpool that was Radiant City as quickly as possible. She didn't know how many people were going to be sucked into this enormous whirlpool. Shu Qianran said, "Push me to the window, Juzi." Yes. Juzi hurriedly pushed his wheelchair to the window and helped him open it. The night winds felt chilly as they gusted through the window. Shu Qianran stared at the night sky and smiled as he said, "You should make your move if you want to watch the tournament." Juzi shook her head and said, "I'm not going anywhere. I want to accompany you." She placed her hands on Shu Qianran's shoulders as she spoke and gently massaged them. A warm smile appeared on Shu Qianran's face, something that was hard to come by. He patted Juzi's hand and said, "My heart can relax only when I'm alone with you. This feeling is just fantastic. It's a pity that the night will not let me enjoy this pleasure peacefully and quietly. If you're not going to watch the tournament, remember not to leave my side after this. They should be here soon." Juzi was a little surprised. "Who's coming? It's already so late." Shu Qianran sneered and said, "Some people won't give up on their stupid decisions just because it's getting late." Right at this moment, an elderly voice suddenly rang out. "Since you're already here, stop hiding. Come out." Countless bodyguards raced out and plugged every corner of Shu Qianran's study. A white sphere of light suddenly lit up the black night sky. A figure hovered arrogantly in the sky above Shu Qianran's study, and a long black robe swayed gently in the wind. He was just standing there in mid-air, as if he had been there since the beginning of time. There was no expression on his face, but there was an indescribable pride and arrogance, as if he were the sky's dictator, as if the earth beneath submitted to him. The Dragon Emperor douluo has become someone's guard dog. People are so treacherous nowadays. A strange voice could be heard, and the sky seemed to split open as a dense dark green cloud stretched through the night sky. The green cloud opened, and someone walked out from within. Indeed, the person hovering above Shu Qianran's study was the Dragon Emperor douluo, Long Xiaoyao, who was also known as the Darkness Holy Dragon. The person who had stepped out from the green clouds was the body sect's current sect leader, Dubuzi, who was a rank 98 body douluo. He was close to becoming an ultimate douluo. Only powerful individuals of his level dared to face someone like Long Xiaoyao, who was already an ultimate douluo. Long Xiaoyao grunted coldly as he glanced at Dubuzi, who had a mass of green hair on his head. "Your elder brother was heavily injured at the hands of Mu En all those years ago. If you wish to remain here today, and want the body sect's lineage to end, I will fulfill your wish." Dubuzi's eyes closed into slits as he muttered coldly, "Don't be so pretentious and condescending, Long Xiaoyao. If I remember correctly, you're originally from the Heavenly Soul Empire. Your decadence has taken you into a sect filled with evil soul masters, and you've become the Sunmoon Empire's lackey. The body sect looks down on you." Long Xiaoyao's expression changed a little when Dubuzi mentioned the Heavenly Soul Empire. He lowered his voice and said, "Has the body sect really come under the Heavenly Soul Empire's wing?" Dubuzi said contemptuously, "Come under their wing? No. We're just working together. The body sect is currently the Heavenly Soul Empire's national defense sect. Long Xiaoyao, if you still consider yourself part of the Heavenly Soul Empire, get out of my way." Long Xiaoyao shook his head and said plainly, I'll spare your life since you have decided to represent the Heavenly Soul Empire. There's nothing more to be said. You should understand the code of titled douluo, and we will speak in the sky if we interfere with mortal conflicts and affairs. Come out, Xianzi. I will take you both on at the same time today. Long Xiaoyao shook as he spoke, and instantly surged into the sky as shadow after shadow appeared behind him. The scorpion tiger douluo, Zhongpeng, was among them, along with about a dozen other shadows. The Sunmoon Empire's mysterious imperial tutor stuck close to Long Xiaoyao. There was an unspoken rule in the world of soul masters, titled douluo, who interfered, or participated in worldly affairs, or conflicts, had to fight it out in the sky to avoid annihilation, destruction, and the loss of life. Only the victorious party was worthy of making a move against others who weren't titled douluo. As long as there was one titled douluo who hadn't been defeated, the other side's titled douluo couldn't participate in combat against others. This rule was a commandment left behind 10,000 years ago by the Tang sect's founding father after he entered the divine realm. Not a single empire had passed this as a law, but all the titled douluo in the world followed this commandment religiously. War was most harmful towards normal citizens, while it wasn't difficult for individuals like titled douluo to massacre an entire city if they unleashed their full strength. This commandment greatly reduced the bloodshed and lives lost in the wars that had unfurled in the 10,000 years since. This was reason why Long Xiaoyao brought it up. He was an ultimate douluo, and the body sect leader, Dubuzi, wouldn't break that rule. Nobody knew exactly how effective Tang San's commandment had been 10,000 years down the road, but everyone was clear that one of them breaking the commandment meant the other party would do so as well. If that happened, the entire continent would swiftly become devoid of life. This was the reason why the titled douluo fought in the sky no matter their goal, and those who didn't have 9 soul rings were responsible for assaulting the royal palace. A golden beam of light lit up half the night sky as the Taotie douluo, Elder Xian, appeared in the sky. He seemed to chime in from the other end as they sandwiched Long Xiaoyao between them, and the three of them soared into the sky at the same time. There were more than 20 individuals who rose together with Elder Xian and Dubuzi into the sky. Long Xiaoyao was a powerful being, but his expression changed. His side had only half the number of titled douluo compared to the other side. Furthermore, Long Xiaoyao was very clear that with the body sect and the Shrek Academy's depth and background, more than half of these titled douluo were transcendent douluo. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to trespass into Radiant City's royal palace. Xianzi, we don't have to be polite with the old darkness dragon anymore. He's our senior, let's team up against him. Dubuzi laughed heartily, and he bolted out right when he rose into the sky as he went straight for Long Xiaoyao. Elder Xian frowned, but he hesitated for only a moment before he flew towards Long Xiaoyao along with Dubuzi. The two of them were some of the strongest individuals in the world. They were both rank 98 transcendent douluo. However, it might seem like they were only one rank away from a rank 99 ultimate douluo, but they were very clear what this gap meant. This was the reason why Dubuzi hadn't dared to attack Mu Yen when he faced him those years ago, even though he knew that Elder Mu was still recovering from his old injuries. If they matched up 1 versus 1 against the Dragon Emperor douluo, Long Xiaoyao, they had no chance at all. But 2 against 1 was different. They were at the pinnacle of the world, and Long Xiaoyao might not be able to defeat them 1 against 2 even with his strength. This wasn't as simple as 1 plus 2, their cultivation and experience over 100 years would allow them to complement each other and raise their overall strength exponentially. The other titled douluo didn't make a move. Instead, they retreated far away and watched this epic showdown. This was a great opportunity for them to watch a battle at this level, and it would be very beneficial for people at their level. If they could understand something, or have some kind of revelation from this fight, that would be very catalyzing and inspirational for their cultivation in the future. Ranking up after becoming a titled douluo was extremely challenging, and this was especially so for those titled douluo who were stuck at the bottleneck that would make them into a transcendent douluo. Long Xiaoyao wasn't fearful at all as the 2 powerful individuals lunged towards him. He raised both hands in the air and pushed one out against Dubuzi and the other at Elder Xian. Deep dragon roars echoed through the night sky like rolling thunder. In Elder Xian and Dubuzi's eyes, Long Xiaoyao was like an ancient dragon, arching its back and flashing its sharp claws at them. 2 black palm shadows swelled in the wind, quickly reaching a height of 100 meters. They were so tall and majestic that they resembled small mountains. Heh! Dubuzi growled as green light surged around his body. A dark green light stretched out behind his back, and his arms grew exponentially as he pushed forward with his two giant spirit's palms and collided with one of the black palm shadows in the sky. Boom! A deep boom resonated across the air, and even Radiant City's royal palace trembled beneath it. Dubuzi quivered, but his enormous dark green hands plunged into the large black palm shadow, and he forcefully tore it apart right in front of him. On the other side, Elder Xian's response was a lot less ferocious. He took a step forward through the air, and the godly Taotie bull's projection flickered behind him as two long horns protruded from the top of his head. 2 yellow, 2 purple, 4 black, and 1 red soul ring shimmered into view as he punched out with his right hand. Boom! The black palm shadow dissipated, while Elder Xian was sent hurtling backwards more than 10 meters. Long Xiaoyao's shoulders trembled in the distance. The Dragon Emperor Douluo was fighting against two, and he still had the upper hand. This was true strength. Boom, boom, boom. Deep thunderous booms resonated in the sky, and shadows flickered incessantly. It's begun. We should make a move. A bright voice rang out in a dark alley beside the Sunmoon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. A strange sight occurred. There was a small being hovering in front of Wang Donga, Wang Chua, Ji Juechen, Jing Ziyan, and Xiao Xiao. This being was about 1 foot tall, but it felt like a real person. Judging by its appearance, wasn't that Huo Yuhao? The light coming from his body wasn't glaring, and his projection almost felt material. However, he was no longer crippled and immobile, and he was just drifting in front of everyone. He looked a lot like his spirit, the little snow lady. Everyone was overcome with shock when Huo Yuhao appeared in front of them like that a couple of minutes ago. Yes, this was Huo Yuhao's spiritual avatar that he had separated from his main body. He was gradually able to control it as he flew along, and even though he was still a little disoriented and unfamiliar, because he had to split his consciousness in two, the fact that he could fly his spiritual avatar to his companions proved that he had been successful. Huo Yuhao wasn't hasty to lead his companions into the operation when he arrived. Instead, he was waiting quietly until now. He flew over to Wang Donga and sat down on her shoulder when they heard the deep and deafening booms in the sky, and he urged them to begin. Wang Donga glanced at him, and she couldn't help but laugh. You're quite cute in this form. Huo Yuhao rolled his eyes and said, let's go, we should hurry. Almost all the powerful individuals are concentrated over there, and it seems like the Sunmoon Empire is prepared for this ambush on the royal palace. If I'm not wrong, the Class 9 Soul Engineers who are normally stationed here have been drawn over there. We have about an hour to figure out how much of an advantage we can take from this opportunity. All right. Wang Donga acknowledged, and she walked at the forefront with Huo Yuhao's spiritual power guiding her. The other 4 followed closely behind. Wang Chua was walking right behind Wang Donga, and she stared at Huo Yuhao on Wang Donga's shoulder. Strange lights flickered time and time again in her eyes. This fellow is getting more and more powerful, indeed. The place they were at was the same one that Chen had met somebody in secret that day, and the same place that Huo Yuhao had discreetly discovered. Huo Yuhao had used spiritual separation that time as well. But his main body wasn't doing anything when he had used it back then, while his spiritual avatar didn't have to use any abilities at all. This meant the previous instance was a lot easier to control and operate, but now he had to concentrate all his energy on this endeavor. Huo Yuhao activated his imitation, and he integrated himself and his 5 companions into their surroundings. Nobody could discover them even if someone came close to check. They followed along the small path beside the Sunmoon Academy, and they relied on imitation to circle around the soldiers who were standing guard outside. They quickly arrived outside the same courtyard where Chen had discreetly met up with somebody back then. It's here. Huo Yuhao reached into his companions' consciousnesses and informed them. He increased his spiritual detection's area of effect at the same time and encompassed the entire courtyard. The situation was exactly as he had predicted. The only person who remained was the middle-aged man who met Chen that day, and his surname was Li. At this moment, he was just standing inside the courtyard, a calm expression on his face. However, anxiety flashed across his eyes from time to time, as if he was waiting for something. The middle-aged man wasn't waiting for money, as Chen had given him the rest of the payment once the goods had been delivered. He was waiting for news that the deal had been successful. He was selling rare metals in private without his superior's knowledge, and he knew that his life would be over if he was discovered. He had to be as cautious and careful as possible. There was a black metal box in his hands, and he glanced again and again at the crystal screen on the metal box's surface. "Let me go," Wang Chua whispered. Huo Yuhao hurriedly waved her away and said, "We're not in a hurry. Let's wait for a little while more. This place seems lax on the outside, but it's very strict and secure on the inside, and there are many traps all around. We cannot act rashly and alert the enemy he's waiting for news, and we'll make our move when he gets it. This way, the person he's meeting up with won't suspect that something isn't right, and we can avoid any unnecessary accidents." Huo Yuhao's calm and composure influenced everybody around him, and Wang Chua said nothing more. The deep booms that were coming from the distant sky that resembled rolling thunder became louder and louder. Dark green, black, and yellow colors alternately lit up the sky. They were battling high up in the sky, but everyone could still feel how epic and magnificent that battle was even though they were so far away. A look of pity and regret flashed across Huo Yuhao's eyes. He would really have loved to watch this clash between this generation's most powerful individuals if he hadn't had more important things to do. This video will end here.